occasion to sing, "Things Have Changed." No question about it, her romance with John had been a whirlwind. Make that a tornado. They'd met on a case that had drawn her father and the NYPD detective together and taken them across 3 countries, encountering a slew of dead bodies and unraveling family secrets that still rocked Rachel when she thought about them. If it hadn't been for John, Rachel was pretty sure she wouldn't have survived it. Still, her closest friends told her not to get her hopes up once she and John resumed their normal lives back in Manhattan. Rachel could see their point. Common sense said that she and John had been caught up in the moment, with every synapse and emotion taken to the nth degree, due to the extraordinary circumstances that had thrown them together. Life back home turned out to be even better, despite their crazy work schedules. It wasn't like crime was going to take a permanent sabbatical in New York City and give John nothing to do, or not provide fodder for the feature articles she'd penned for various outlets, like the Last Commandment piece for Vanity Fair. But Rachel and John had somehow managed to spend every other waking hour together, and both only wished there were more of them in a day. Yet Rachel had been caught off guard early one morning, a month after their return, when she'd laid half awake in John's secure arms, and he suggested they get an apartment together. She smiled and told him, based on a couple of previous missteps in that direction, that she had vowed not to live with someone again and go through the heartbreak that came when one of them had to move out. So thank you very much, but no thank you. But she did punctuate the declination with a kiss on the tip of his nose. So maybe we should make it a permanent thing. That woke her up. Wait, did you just ask me to marry you? John took a beat as Rachel realized that he might have even surprised himself. Yes, I suppose I did. Then he gave her a grin, the grin she could never get enough of. So? She immediately said yes, at least a dozen times. And that was from a girl who usually looked at a situation every which way, top and bottom, right and left, inside and out, and then all over again before making a decision. And then she would spend the next day or two wondering if she'd made a huge mistake. But not in this case. There had not been a single regret that day, or the next one, or since. And now here she was, rings in hand along with a wedding gift she wanted John to wear on the blessed day. Seeing as how she was catching a flight out of JFK to England the next morning to begin preparations for the wedding, this was her last chance to pull off her surprise with the Tiffany box. It was why she had offered to pick up the rings and told John that she would bring them to dinner that night. That way she could get the cufflinks as well, and she figured he would be touched finding them, and the note hidden in his suitcase, when a week later he'd pack to join her in London. John's studio apartment was on Lexington, between East 37th and 38th Streets, on the 2nd floor of a walk-up. They hardly ever spent a night there, as it was more than a tight squeeze. When the Murphy bed was dropped from the wall, there was barely a place to stand. But for those rare occasions, John had bestowed a spare key upon Rachel, tethered to the end of a small chain, with a white teddy bear wearing a little red "I Heart NYC" sweater. It was dopey, but so lovely that Rachel kept the chain attached and tucked inside her bag. She pulled it out to let herself inside the lobby. She climbed one set of stairs, entered the 2nd-floor hallway, and moved down the corridor toward John's apartment. Even though she was 99% sure that John was out making the Manhattan streets safe for one and all, she knocked on the door and called out his name. When no one answered, she couldn't help smiling. Her plan was going off without a hitch. She unlocked the door and slipped inside, closing it behind her, and then flicked on the light. She dropped the Tiffany's bag on the floor. It turned out she wasn't alone. She stared at the other person in the apartment, Julia. Though they had never met, Rachel knew all about Julia Molinari and certainly recognized her. It wasn't like John kept pictures of his ex-wife on the mantel or his desk, but it was only natural for Rachel to be interested in what the woman looked like. But never had Rachel expected that the first time she saw Julia in person.